Welcome back, everyone, to Everyday Therapy, a podcast with the goal of empowering you to become the best version of yourself. We hope to meet you wherever you may be on your journey to mental health and well-being, whether you're just starting out or you're well-versed. My name is Krista Overson. I'm a licensed therapist, and I'm joined by my very wonderful co-host, Brett Cushing, also a licensed therapist, and this is the official podcast of Nystrom and Associates. If you or someone you love is struggling with their mental health, Nystrom has over 50 clinics with dedicated helpers. Visit us at nystromcounseling.com. A few notes for you about this episode. We are on episode 2 of a 2-part series, so make sure if you haven't listened to the week before, go back and give that a listen because that's going to give you a lot of important information about today's episode. I also want to just give listeners a heads up that some of the things we're discussing in today's episode might be sensitive, might be triggering, so be sure to listen with care and take good care of yourself. We are addressing sexual abuse and trauma today, and the hopeful part is we're talking about recovery from said abuse and trauma. So, Brett, welcome back.
Hey, it's good to be back.
It is. I don't know about you, but I'm just having this experience of feeling very we talked with Lindsay last week. We're talking with Lindsay again. I just feel so kind of like honored. I feel like something really special is happening right now because we're talking with someone who's been through so much and has just kind of tackled healing in this really inspiring way and doing the work. Obviously, it hasn't been easy, but kept coming back, kept doing the work. And so we hope to focus on that today. One more piece that we discussed a little bit last time is so often, Brett and I were discussing, so often when we're working with clients in therapy, it's fairly common that we could be working with a client for quite some time before they disclose to us any sexual trauma or abuse. We might know some of their trauma history. I know for me, sexual trauma and sexual abuse is one of the last to come up in the therapeutic treatment. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. Shame, doubt about responsibility, feeling like I should have done something different. I shouldn't, this shouldn't have happened to me. So one thing I just wanted to throw out there to Lindsay is, what were there things when you were working with your therapist and you did decide to share about your past? I guess, how did you know when it was a safe time to share?
So for me, it probably took a year to a year and a half.
Yep, that's common. Yeah.
And I'd say that is only because in the past, whenever I tried to open up about it, whether it was to friends, family members, or one other time in the past, or 2 other times in the past, I had tried to see counselors, and it just was not a comfortable setting. It didn't end well for myself. So I never returned.
Sure.
But with my counselor here at Nystrom, what I experienced was selfishly, I wanted to see my counselor pay into me. And then I would repay by paying back into them. So It was a trusting relationship on my part. I wanted to see what I could receive.
Of course.
Because of the relationships, obviously, in my past, when trying to indulge these things, yes. I wasn't receiving what I was giving. So I wanted to receive first before giving this information again.
What did you feel you needed to receive that you received?
I needed to receive somebody who could understand my situation, what I was going to explain, because of all the confusion, how I had to stay in some of these relationships to make a safe exit. Generally, people don't understand why you stay. Why would you stay in an abusive relationship if it's unhealthy for you? Well, if it's unsafe to leave, I will stay until I have a safe exit strategy. But most people don't understand that if I was to leave, the likelihood of something happening to myself
yes.
So I stay. I wanted to make sure that if I was to express all of this to my therapist, that they would actually have a place to receive it and understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I keep hearing safety, 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 like not experiencing safety anywhere during the trauma, post-trauma, and you needed the safety that came from somebody, and I'd heard you say this, like, I needed somebody who believed me.
Exactly.
And believed in me. And I think that's a really, I'm glad you asked this question, Krista, at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I don't want to forget a little caveat here.
Sure.
Lindsay, you had said before we started, we were talking about this topic. And you had talked about in relationships where it seems consensual, you kind of had a word that you wanted to share with listeners about sexual activity. And specifically, like if someone's uncomfortable about something. Do you remember talking about that? Do you want to share anything more on that?
A specific word?
Well, yeah, like
no.
Hey, yeah. Could you
that's
wait?
the one.
I want to
Could I
write
just
that
say
down.
no?
Could you say that again?
N-O?
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you say no, it means no. Or if you say stop, it means stop.
Well, no, I mean, well, wait a
Yes,
second. What
exactly.
about in a marriage relationship and
If you're in
she's
a-
not comfortable, but it's a marriage relationship? I mean, come on.
It still means no. No still means no. It doesn't matter what type of relationship you're in. If there's a marriage license, if you're in a committed relationship, doesn't matter if you're 60, doesn't matter if you're 20. It is still no. If you're not comfortable with the act, it still means no. And if you are forced to do this act, it is sexual abuse.
Right.
And many men and women do not understand that that is sexual abuse. I have had multiple conversations with women over 50 recently who do not understand that. And when I express that to them, they actually get emotional realizing that throughout these relationships in their lives, they have actually been sexually abused.
Right. Yeah. So I'm glad you made a point to talk about that because I think it is very misunderstood in our culture today, and then very empowering to many women, for you to be able to say that.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about the effects of sexual trauma upon you? You talked about you can't just leave,
Right.
But I mean, afterward, even when you were doing therapy, I know things started to come up for you, and there were all sorts of symptoms and behaviors that you were going through. Maybe realized it was from trauma, maybe didn't. Can you help people understand what it was? Because it might be validating for them.
Health-wise?
Health, behavioral, I think about blinds, dreams,
everything
health,
all together. So for me, I became chronically ill, and I do attribute that to living for so many years suppressing my trauma and not addressing it. And that is one of the main reasons I'm here today, to urge everyone who is living with trauma to actually come to counseling and address it, not to suppress it and live with it inside of them and allow it to embed itself within them. What I also endured was night terrors, and they were consistent all the time. Nowadays, I may have them once a week, once every few weeks, and I don't remember what they are. I just wake up, I may have night sweats, whatever, and I can go right back to sleep. Before doing all my therapy, I could not keep the blinds open in my home.
Wow.
Because I did not want anyone to see in. Now the blinds are open all the time. I can sleep with them open. It doesn't bother me.
Amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. And even when I used to be in public, I was always looking over my shoulder. It was just something that I was always nervous. It felt like there was always someone somewhere behind me.
Kind of reminds me of, and I haven't experienced this, but I can imagine like a soldier going through like the jungle or something, always hyper vigilant of potential attack. Is that kind of what it was like?
Exactly. Okay. And there are times still where I do have that hypervigilance. Mm-hmm. If there's like a small store or anything that I am going to go into, if there are too many people in it, I won't go in. I open the door and I'll pop right back out. Yep. But I do recognize that it's my PTSD, and I have to be comfortable with the spaces I go into. Mm. And I also recognize I still will not sit with my back to a door if like I go in to eat somewhere.
Yeah.
Simple things of that nature, but it's not as bad as what it used to be. And I have hope through continuing therapy that it will get better and I will feel safer in every environment I go into.
Right.
I think of this too, and I think, the physiological effect of trauma, we've referred to it before on the podcast here, the book, The Body Keeps the Score.
Yep.
The Body Keeps the Score is a great book, great research that really highlights the negative effects physiologically that we experience from trauma, especially to your point, Lindsay, when we're suppressing it. And you've experienced that as you have a number of physiological maladies and things that you're struggling with that nobody would even know looking at you, but it is pervasive. And I think didn't you lose hearing or smell after
the first time I was raped?
Yeah.
And first time I was raped, I lost my sense of smell, ringing in my ears, and I still have it. Wow. And I started getting migraines. I've had one consistent migraine since the first time I was raped.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And so that migraine will increase with the weather and whatnot.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. I think that word hypervigilance, I just wanted to point out to listeners that is actually a symptom and a criteria that we look at when diagnosing post-traumatic stress disorder.
Right.
So and you described it perfectly, the looking over my shoulder, I'm always on edge. I don't want people looking in, and I'm just kind of scanning at all times, right? And that's because the alarm system in the brain is not able to kind of turn off, turn down. So it's just always I have to be ready to go at any point if there's danger, and I have to be able to run, I have to be able to get away. And so the brain is actually hey, I'm doing you a favor, I'm keeping you safe. Yeah. But it can be so disruptive because you can't relax. Right?
I used to wake up in the middle of the night just to check the doors, check out the windows, just to make sure nobody.
Yep.
But that's how alarming it can be. Yes. It will wake you up to make sure, just to check and make sure you're safe.
And sleep gets disrupted with trauma because the part of our brain that regulates sleep is also closely linked to the part of our brain that's fight or flight. Right. So it's of course there's sleep disruption because that part of the brain is hey, I'm not shutting off. I'm keeping you safe, right? I never sleep, that part of the brain, right?
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say I only sleep about 4 hours a day. And
consistently still. Okay, sure. Yep.
So let's contrast this a little bit, kind of provide some tangible help. We've seen the ill effects on you. Where are you today? In relation to that, you had mentioned the blinds are open. Did you ever conceive that you would be able to be in your room and the blinds are open?
No. And actually, if you would have asked me 10 years ago if I thought I'd be able to live independently again with all my diseases and the way life was affecting me, I would have said no.
Wow.
But today, I'm living independently. I'm able to get myself to and from all of my specialist appointments, therapy each and every week, do for myself. Yes, I have help. I have caregivers, whatnot, but I am doing for me. And I attribute it to 4 years of therapy, going to ADT, DBT, doing talk therapy, EMDR, doing everything I needed to because I was determined to have a better future. And I hope that all of this can give everybody out here hope. If they do the same thing, they can have a better future. And it truly is just one foot in front of the other.
Yes.
Dedicating yourself to you. not to someone else, not to a partner, not to your children, not to your parents, siblings, to you. Because if you dedicate yourself to you, to a better you, you can then dedicate yourself to your children, to a partner, to your family.
Yep.
But once you're healthier, you can be healthier for your family.
You might even be able to get on a podcast and help other people, right?
That's what I was thinking.
I mean,
not just about the podcast, but like giving back. Because again, it takes people going through this painstaking process, coming out the other side and saying, hey, I did this. You can do this. Like, you're not alone, first of all.
Right.
People can heal from this, from even the most unimaginable trauma.
It's
right?
scary. It is scary stuff.
Yeah.
And there's hope.
Incredibly inspiring. Yes.
Well, and I think once you start going through the process, you will start to realize there is no shame in what has happened to you. I think you truly will start to peel away all the layers and see that this sexual abuse was not your fault.
Yes.
You do not have to be ashamed of what has happened. And once you take that shame out of the equation, you become so much happier and so much more free and able and willing to move forward.
Yes.
I'm so glad, because that's really where I wanted to go next, is to talk a little bit more about the role of shame, because that's probably, I think, the greatest obstacle for a lot of people.
Yes.
It's scary to talk about because this sense of shame, and this is I allowed this to happen, and all this, what we would call cognitive distortion. Can you tell more? What would you want people to hear about that shame and how dominating it can be? What else would you say about that, or you want people to know?
For me, I actually never felt the shame because I knew I didn't ask for it. I said no. I said stop each and every single time. I begged. I fought. So I've never worn the shame, not even once. However, anytime I tried to express to anyone what had happened to me, how I'd gotten into these ugly relationships that then were embedded with this rape and sexual abuse, people were like, I don't understand. I don't get it. So then they would attach almost this shame to it.
Ooh, that's powerful.
So when other people attach shame to what you're going through, then I'm ashamed because you're ashamed of me. But why are you ashamed of me for what they're doing to me? So now my friends, family, and no one can understand. So now it's affecting generationally what's going on in my life, in my family, and the confusion is extending, branching out family-wise, friends. So here we are with all this confusion and chaos, and now I have shame that's not directly attached to the sexual abuse, but to the situation.
Right.
Yes. I think I love that example because that illustrates so well a few different things. One, this is exactly why people don't tell, right? And I think that's an important distinction because even though inside of you, you knew that you didn't cause this and that it wasn't your fault, as soon as you would open up and tell someone, then it was like, okay, now it's like, well, what, why did you stay? What were you thinking? Like, how did you not leave? And again, that comes from that other person's experience. And so they're projecting almost onto you.
Exactly.
Right?
It's their emotions, their viewpoint, it's how uncomfortable you make them with what you're telling them.
Exactly.
So it's their emotional shutdown and their spew of emotions onto you.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then you're shutting down now because you feel that way about me and my situation. And then where does that put you?
Exactly.
Into a stupor because I was trying to express to you where I'm at, what I'm enduring, and that's how you feel now.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it comes from people have this sense that what happened to you is so uncomfortable for me, and I can't fix that. I can't control it. I don't even understand it. So I'm going to come up with simple kind of responses that heap shame upon you because I can't handle it.
Yep, exactly.
I can't handle this discomfort, this lack of control.
Right.
And so I'm going to offer this little trite explanation. Or I'm going to should on you. You should have done this or you should have done that. And it's so incredibly selfish.
Right.
Because what people are doing unknowingly is not only heaping shame upon you, for instance, but they're doing this because they can't handle it, which is really ironic.
Yeah.
I mean, they haven't even had the abuse happen to them, and they can't handle it. You're the one that's experienced it, and you're the one that's fighting against it.
And it's almost a re-traumatization, trying to express it and then having that response. When in reality, the person you're expressing it to could lean into sympathy and extend some empathy to you. That's all it would really take is, I am so sorry this has happened to you. How can I help you? Is there anything I can do? What needs to happen? Is there anything that should be done? Yeah. That's all it would really take.
Yeah.
Just that expression, that extent of verbal expression. It doesn't need to be anything more than that. If someone is expressing what they've just endured, nobody's expecting you to mop up the mess of what someone else just did to them.
Exactly.
But if someone is opening up to you saying, I was just raped or I was just sexually abused in this way, they probably just truly, honestly, need you to be there for them. Nothing more. Maybe if you're close enough to them, like sibling or, mother or daughter, they may just need a hug.
Exactly.
If you don't know them very well, you may just not want to touch them. It may be traumatizing. However, they probably just need to be heard. But they don't need to be shut down either.
Yes.
Yeah. I tell people all the time, don't try to fix it for them.
Right.
Try to do something a lot harder. Instead of fixing it for them, which you can't, feel it with them.
Exactly.
Stand with them. And I love everything you said. Just, hey, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Is there anything I can do?
I think that's a powerful takeaway too from this episode is if you find yourself in a position where someone in your life is sharing with you something that's happened to them, whether it be recent or in the distant past, like what are the things to say? What are the things to not say? And I think just receiving it and listening is a big takeaway. And then like we were saying, just saying, oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you. How can I help? Right? And is there anything that you need from me that I can do for you? But I would say no advice.
Right.
No, right? And no kind of like questioning their judgment, just like
why did it happen?
Right.
Why did you do that? Why were you there?
Right.
We should have been at home versus
Right.
Yep. Or yeah, exactly. Because the person who has survived this abuse is already carrying all of those questions. They don't need you to be asking them why this happened, how this happened. They're already entrenched.
And I think one last thing to say to this point is when we have one person we can truly, truly believe in and lean on in these situations, it allows us to open up. It allows us to have somebody we can truly lean on. And then it allows somebody to truly understand where we're coming from.
Yes.
And then we don't feel the shame of what this other person has done to us. So when someone will sit there and just listen to us with a non-judgmental stance and not put their feelings onto us about the situation, it allows us to open up and not feel that shame.
Yep.
That's powerful. I want to just add two things I've heard you say. The shame, when we're speaking about shame, the shame should be worn by the person who did this to you.
Absolutely.
You don't have to wear it. And something else I heard you say, you, speaking of the person who has experienced this sexual trauma, you are actually stronger today than the day it actually happened. Can you expand on that as we close this episode? Like, what do you mean by that?
So for me, after putting in all of my hard work over the past 4 years with Nystrom, I said earlier, with ADT, DBT, EMDR, talk therapy, I am stronger today. I have stronger relationships. I have less chaos in my life, living independently. I truly am more stable today than I have been in the past probably 12 years. And I can only attribute that to my dedication and hard work with my therapist here at Nystrom. And I can only urge and ask everyone out there who's listening, who has been in my position, is currently in my position, to please consider dedicating yourself to therapy. If you can't do ADT, DBT, EMDR, consider talk therapy at least. You will see the benefits.
I love that you said you were kind of listing the different services that you received, but you ultimately said it was my dedication, because it starts with you making a decision, right? To dedicate yourself to this healing. You could have the best therapist in the world, and still, if you haven't made that choice, if you don't have the willingness to keep coming back, it's like that's the key.
Well, and I think that's why it was my choice to wait a year and a half to indulge the sexual abuse.
Right.
I wasn't going to allow for it to be pulled out of me.
Yep.
I worked on that in my own time. I started with other trauma to work on first.
Right.
Because it's me. It's what I need to work on. Exactly. But nobody's going to drag me into therapy. Nobody's going to force me here. It's what I need to work on in my time. And it's like everybody else. You have to make the choice to be here. Nobody can change you. You have to change you. And that's the same thing. If you're in a bad relationship, you're never going to be able to change anybody else.
No, exactly.
So if you're in a bad relationship, make your safe exit.
Agreed. And as we close this episode, I just wanted to give a resource to those of you who might be experiencing sexual violence, domestic violence, even sex trafficking. There is help out there. There's one particular program, at least in Minnesota, called Day One Services, day1services.org. They have a crisis hotline. It is 1-866-223-1111. Reach out. You can go to their website. There's help for you. So.
Yeah, and we want people to come back one more time as we do a third podcast with Lindsay. And we're going to finish up, and Lindsay's going to share some of the important keys to her healing, as well as how does she feel about her abusers today, and just her life. How is it different today? She's talked a little bit about that, but we want to close this out by really highlighting the healing effect, the new life that she has. So
I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. We're so glad you could join us. And please pass this on to a friend or family member who you know, and get the word out that there's hope and there's healing, and you can empower yourself to become the best version of yourself.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you as always for listening, and please be sure to leave us a review. While this podcast can't be a replacement for therapy, we hope you enjoyed our discussion today and join us again next time. Nystrom & Associates is always available to those who are struggling. If you find yourself in need of support and help, please check us out at nystromcounseling.com.